The council chamber smelled of old wood and older grudges. Morven Steelhand stood before the assembled clan leaders, her posture military straight, despite 3 days without sleep. The iron shackle on her right wrist caught the firelight, not a prisoner's restraint, but something she'd forged herself and never removed. Explain the mark, Elder Thrain said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd never needed to explain anything in his life. That iron on your wrist, that's not clan work. That's not even proper smithing. Morven's jaw tightened. Around her, the gathered warriors of Blackrock clans shifted and whispered. Most had heard stories. Few knew the truth. It's personal, she said. Personal doesn't matter here. Thrain stood his bulk casting shadows across the rough-hewn table. You come to our clan seeking command, seeking to lead our warriors after your own clan cast you out. We have a right to know what kind of warrior wears a shackle like a badge. My clan didn't cast me out. I left. Semantics. This from Captain Vorgath, a younger warrior whose father sat on the council. Leaving when you're told to leave is still exile, and exiles carry stains. Morven's hand moved unconsciously to the iron band. It was crude work. She'd made it in a field forge with borrowed tools, heated it until it glowed white, and clamped it around her own wrist while it was still hot enough to sear. The scar tissue beneath had fused with the metal over the years. She could never remove it now, even if she wanted to, which she didn't. The mark, Thrain repeated, tells a story. We want to hear it. Morven looked around the chamber. 20 faces stared back. Warriors who'd heard she was skilled. Leaders who'd heard she was trouble. Elders who'd heard both and believed the latter. I commanded a company, she said finally. 40 warriors. We held a mountain pass during the human incursion 7 years ago. For 3 weeks, we kept them from breaking through to the lowlands. We held against forces that should have overrun us in days. We've heard this, Vorgath interrupted. Held the pass. Great victory. The ballads mention it. What they don't mention is why you left your clan 6 months later. The ballads don't know everything. Then tell us what they don't know. Morven was silent for a long moment. Outside, wind howled through the mountain peaks. Snow was coming early this year. She could smell it on the air. We held the pass, she continued, her voice flat. But holding has a cost. On the 19th day, we were down to 23 warriors. Supplies were gone. The injured outnumbered the healthy. Command sent word that reinforcements couldn't reach us. The humans had cut the supply route. She paused, remembering. The faces of those warriors were still clear in her mind. Everyone. I received direct orders to abandon the pass. Fall back through the eastern ridge, regroup with the main force, let the humans through. Command said the pass wasn't worth losing the entire company. Sensible orders, Elder Brenna said from her seat. She was old enough to have commanded in wars Morven had only read about. Retreat is not cowardice when it's strategic. I refused the order. The room went silent. Thrain leaned forward. You refused a direct command during wartime. I judged that the pass was more valuable than command understood. If the humans broke through there, they'd have a straight route to 3 villages, 5,000 civilians. I kept my warriors in position. And we held for 4 more days. Reinforcements finally arrived on day 23. The pass was secured. The human force was decimated. The villages were saved. We lost 18 warriors total. 22 survived. Vorgath's expression was calculating. So you disobeyed orders, won anyway, and somehow that got you exiled. There's more to this. There always was. Morven lifted her right arm, showing the shackle clearly. Of the 18 who died, 6 fell in those final 4 days. The days after I refused to retreat. 6 warriors who would have lived if I'd followed orders. But 40 more would have lived in those villages, Brenna pointed out. The families of those 6 warriors didn't see it that way. Neither did the clan elders. They said I'd spent lives that weren't mine to spend, that a commander who won't follow orders is dangerous regardless of the outcome. They gave me a choice: accept discipline for insubordination or leave. And the shackle is my reminder. I forged it from the broken weapons of those 6, wore it hot, let it burn into my skin. Every day since I wear the weight of that choice. The lives I saved by staying, the lives I cost by staying, both. The room was quiet again. Different kind of quiet this time. Thrain sat back. That's a heavy burden for one warrior. Command is heavy, or it should be. Anyone who thinks otherwise isn't fit to lead. Bold words from someone asking us for a command position. Not asking, offering, I'm a skilled warrior and a proven leader, but I won't lie about my past to make you comfortable. This is what I am. Take it or send me to the next clan. Vorgath stood abruptly. We don't need commanders who think they're wiser than their superiors, who make judgment calls that cost lives. We need soldiers who follow orders. Then you don't need me. Morven turned toward the door. Wait. Elder Brenna's voice cut through the chamber. Vorgath speaks from inexperience. He's never commanded anything larger than a patrol, never made a decision where every choice is wrong and you have to pick the least terrible option. She looked at Morven. That shackle. You still wear it. Why won't? Because I never want to forget what command buffs. Every order I give, I feel this iron against my skin. Reminds me that I'm choosing for others, that my decisions echo, that I'm responsible. Brenna nodded slowly. Blackrock has a problem. We have strong warriors, but few leaders who understand that responsibility. Most of our commanders think leadership means shouting the loudest and taking the most risks. They don't understand that true command is carrying the weight of other people's lives. What are you saying? Thrain asked. I'm saying test her, give her a command, something real. See if she's as capable as she claims. And if she fails, then we lose nothing. We're already short on competent officers. But if she succeeds, Brenna looked at Morven with something that might have been respect. We gain exactly the kind of commander we need. Thrain was quiet for a long moment. Then there's a situation. Eastern border. Human settlement encroaching on treaty lands. They're fortifying, bringing in more people. Intelligence suggests they're planning to claim the territory permanently. You want me to remove them, Morven said. I want you to resolve the situation without starting a war. The treaty is delicate. If we attack openly, the humans have justification to mobilize their full force. If we do nothing, we lose land that's rightfully ours. Sounds like a test designed to fail. Sounds like command. Take 20 warriors. Figure it out. If you succeed, you have a permanent position. If you fail, Thrain shrugged, we'll discuss exile again. Morven studied him. This was still a trap. They were offering her an impossible task and watching to see how she handled it. But impossible tasks were familiar territory. I accept. When do I leave? Dawn, Vorgath will assign you warriors from the reserve company. You have 48 hours to resolve this before we send official intervention. Understood. Morven nodded to the council and left. Behind her, she heard Vorgath mutter something about fools and foreigners. She ignored it. She'd heard worse. Morven Steelhand had been born in the northern reaches where winters were brutal and summers were worse. Her mother died when she was young fever that the healers couldn't cure. Her father was a career soldier who raised her the only way he knew, with discipline and distance. She learned to fight before she learned to read. Learned to march before she learned to cook. Learned that weakness was punished and strength was the only currency that mattered. At 16, she'd killed her first enemy, a human raider who'd gotten separated from his group during a border clash. She'd ambushed him in a ravine, one clean spear thrust through the ribs. He'd died quickly, looking surprised. She'd thrown up afterward, shaking so hard she could barely stand. Her father had found her there, looked at the body, looked at her. First one's always hard, he'd said. Gets easier. It did get easier. That was the problem. By 20, she was leading squads, by 23 companies. She was good at it, had a tactical mind that saw patterns others missed, could read terrain like language, understood how to use smaller forces against larger ones. But she'd also learned something her father never taught her, that soldiers were people, not just tactical assets, that every order had a human cost, that victories measured in enemy casualties ignored the price paid by your own warriors. The Mountain Pass incident had crystallized everything. She'd been right to hold. The strategic value was clear, the civilian lives saved were real. But the 6 warriors who died in those extra 4 days were equally real. Their families' grief was real. The anger of warriors who felt she'd spent their comrades' lives for strangers was real. The clan elders had given her a choice: accept punishment for insubordination or leave. She'd chosen to leave. But before she went, she'd gathered the broken weapons from those 6 fallen warriors, melted them down, forged a shackle, and burned it into her own wrist while it was still glowing hot. The pain had been extraordinary. She'd passed out twice. When she woke, the iron had cooled enough to set but was still fused to her skin. Infection had been a risk, but she'd survived. Now, 7 years later, the shackle was part of her. The iron had become embedded in scar tissue. Her wrist had adapted around it, bone and metal merged into something that was neither and both. She wore it as a reminder that command was sacrificed, that choices had weight, that she would never forget the six. Some called her obsessive. Some called her damaged. She didn't care about labels. She cared about being the kind of commander she'd needed when she was a young warrior following orders she didn't understand. Now Blackrock Clan was testing her with another impossible situation. Resolve a border dispute without starting a war. Do it with 20 warriors in 48 hours. Fine. She'd faced worse. The reserve company barracks smelled of weapon oil and unwashed bodies. Morven entered at dawn to find 20 warriors assembled, looking varying degrees of pleased to be there. Most were young late teens to mid-20s, a few veterans scattered throughout, all watching her with the cautious interest of people trying to decide if she was competent or crazy. Vorgath stood at the front, arms crossed. Your command is promised. 20 warriors. Half have actual combat experience. The other half are fresh enough to think war is glorious. Names, Morven asked. Vorgath gestured dismissively. Learn them on the road. You have 48 hours. I suggest you stop wasting time on pleasantries and start marching. I wasn't asking for pleasantries. I was asking for names because I don't send warriors into danger without knowing who they are. Sentimental. Practical. A commander who doesn't know her people can't use them effectively. Morven turned to the assembled warriors. Form up. We'll do introductions on the march. Vorgath, I'll need maps of the eastern border, current intelligence on the human settlement, and any information on their defensive capabilities. Already prepared. He handed over a document case with grudging efficiency. The settlement is 3 days old, 40 humans, mostly workers, 10 armed guards. They've started building permanent structures. That's the treaty violation. The land is designated as shared hunting ground, not settlement territory. Have we sent envoys? 2, both turned away at the perimeter. They claim the treaty is outdated and that the land was abandoned anyway. And command's position, officially diplomatic resolution preferred. Unofficially, make the problem go away, however necessary. Morven nodded. Clear enough, we leave in 10 minutes. Anyone who's not ready gets left behind. She walked outside. The warriors scrambled to gather gear. Vorgath followed her. You're really going to learn all their names? Yes. Why? Because when I have to make impossible choices, I want to know exactly who I'm choosing for. She looked at him. That's what the shackle means. Every warrior under my command is a person with a name and a life, and people who will grieve them. I won't forget that. Ever. Vorgath studied her for a moment. You might actually be serious about this. I'm always serious about this. 10 minutes later, they marched east. The journey took a day and a half of hard marching through mountain passes and dense forest. Morven used the time to learn her warriors. There was Kael, 19, eager and untested. His older brother had died in the human wars. He wanted revenge, but didn't really understand what that meant. Bryn, 23, veteran of 3 border skirmishes. Calm, competent, had good instincts but lacked confidence in her own judgment. Tormund, 37, oldest in the group, former company commander who'd been demoted for drinking on duty, bitter but skilled, watched Morven with open skepticism. Sarah, 20, brilliant with tactics but physically small for an orc, got overlooked for promotion repeatedly, desperate to prove herself. And 16 others, each with their own stories, their own reasons for being here, their own people who would mourn them if this went wrong. Morven memorized every name, every face. By the time they reached the eastern borders, she knew who could be trusted with a vanguard, who needed supervision, who would hold under pressure, and who might break. The human settlement came into view at dusk on the second day. It was more developed than intelligence suggested. Not just temporary structures, they'd laid foundations for permanent buildings. A palisade wall was half erected around the perimeter. Defensive positions were crude but functional. More concerning, Morven counted at least 20 armed guards, not 10, and the workers looked suspiciously well organized for civilians. That's not a settlement, Bryn said quietly. That's a fort. Agreed. Morven studied the layout through her scope. They're planning to stay. This isn't encroachment. This is colonization. So we burn them out, Kale suggested. Hit fast, hit hard, send a message. And start a war, Tormund countered. The treaty specifies that military action against civilians is automatic grounds for retaliation. They've put civilians in the front precisely to dare us to attack. So what do? Sarah asked. Morven lowered her scope. We talked to them. We already tried envoys. We tried official envoys with official demands. I'm going to try something different. She looked at Tormund. You commanded before. Can you hold a defensive position if this goes wrong? Depends on the position. Northern Ridge overlooking their western approach. If they sortie against me, hit them from range. Don't engage directly unless they break toward the pass. Tormund considered this. Risky. If they have archers, you're exposed. I'm counting on it. Bryn, you'll come with me. KL Sarah, you're with Tormund. Everyone else split and establish fallback positions along the ridgeline. If I signal retreat, you cover our withdrawal. What's the signal? Bryn asked. Morven lifted her right arm, showing the iron shackle. I'll show you this. You see it, you know we're pulling back. She spent the next hour positioning her warriors. When everyone was in place, she and Bryn walked openly toward the settlement's main gate. Predictably, guards appeared along the wall, crossbows leveled, voices shouting in human tongue that Morven understood well enough. Stop, identify, state your purpose. She stopped at speaking distance. I'm Captain Morven Steelhand. I want to speak with whoever's in charge here. Go back to your lands, Orc. This territory is claimed. Under what authority? Under the authority of people who actually use the land instead of letting it sit empty. The treaty designates this as shared hunting ground. Building permanent settlements violates that treaty. The treaty is 100 years old. Times change. Morven kept her voice level. I'm not here to threaten. I'm here to negotiate. You have 40 people building on contested land. We have the military force to remove you. Neither outcome is good. So let's talk like people with sense instead of fools with pride. Silence from the wall. Then wait there. 5 minutes later, the gate opened. A human man emerged flanked by 4 guards. He was middle-aged, weathered with the look of someone who'd spent years on frontiers. I'm Marcus Webb, he said, settlement administrator. You want to talk? Talk fast. My people are nervous with orcs this close. Your people are building a fort on treaty land. That makes us nervous. This isn't a fort, it's a farming community. Farming communities don't build palisade walls and station armed guards. Webb smiled without warmth. They do when they're on a border with orcs who have a history of violent responses to settlement expansion. We have a history of defending our territory from colonization, Morven corrected. There's a difference. Semantics don't change the reality. This land was empty. We're using it. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Not according to the treaty your government signed. My government is 3 weeks' march from here. By the time they hear about this, we'll have crops in the ground and families established. They won't order us removed then. Morven studied him. Webb was confident, too confident. He'd planned this carefully, knew the political angles, was banking on facts on the ground outweighing legal arguments. You're right that possession matters, she said. But you're wrong about the timeline. We can have you removed in 48 hours. Your government won't hear about it until you're already gone. If you attack civilians, you violate the treaty yourselves. My government would have grounds to send military response. Who said anything about attacking? Morven gestured around. You're building on hunting ground. What if the game disappeared? What if the water sources became unusable? What if supply routes became unreliable? How long can 40 people survive without resupply in hostile territory? Webb's confidence flickered. You'd starve us out. I'd make staying here untenable without ever raising a weapon against a civilian. Legal under the treaty. Effective. And once you leave, we'll tear down everything you have built and restore the land to its designated use. That's still an act of war. No, it's an act of resource management. You're in our territory. We're making it uncomfortable for you to stay. That's not warfare, that's consequences. Webb's guards shifted nervously. They clearly hadn't expected this kind of tactical thinking. We have 40 people here, Webb said. Families, workers who need this land to survive. You'd condemn them to starvation over a legal technicality. I'd enforce a treaty both our peoples agreed to. You chose to bring families into contested territory. That was your decision. Now deal with the consequences. Morven meant it as a hard truth, but something in Webb's expression changed. Went from calculating to genuinely worried. These people have nowhere else to go, he said quietly. The lands south are full. The cities are overcrowded. We're not colonizers. We're desperate people looking for somewhere to live. And there it was, the complexity that simple solutions ignored. Morven was quiet for a moment. Then the treaty has provisions for settlement requests. Your government can petition ours for land grants. It's a formal process, takes time, but it exists. We don't have time. We have people who need food and shelter now. Then petition properly. We'll grant temporary settlement status while the process works. You commit to following the outcome of the official review. If it's approved, you can stay. If not, you leave peacefully. And if we refuse, then I make good on my threat. Cut your supplies, foul your water, make this land unlivable. You'll leave eventually, but people will suffer unnecessarily. Webb looked back at his settlement. Morven could see him calculating the cost of stubbornness versus the benefit of cooperation. Why offer compromise, he asked. You have the power to force us out. Why negotiate? Morven lifted her right arm, showing the shackle. Because I've learned that winning at any cost often costs more than winning is worth. I can remove you, but if I do it the hard way, people will die. Maybe just from starvation and exposure. Maybe from something worse if your guards decide to fight. I don't want those deaths on my conscience. You're an orc commander worried about human deaths. I'm a commander worried about unnecessary deaths. Period. I've killed people. I'll kill again if I have to, but I won't do it when there's another option. Webb stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Give us 3 days to discuss it, to send a messenger to our regional authority for guidance. If they approve the formal petition process, we'll comply. You have 48 hours. That's all the time I'm authorized to give. After that, BlackRock sends official intervention. That won't be gentle. 48 hours isn't enough. It's what you have. Use it wisely. Morven turned and walked away, Bryn following. Behind them, Webb stood in the gateway, looking troubled. When they were out of earshot, Bryn asked, "Do you think he'll take the deal?" "I think he's smart enough to know he doesn't have better options. And if he's not, then we spend the next 2 days making his life miserable without killing anyone. Foul the nearby creek with harmless but foul-smelling chemicals. Scatter caltrops on the supply road. Run night raids that spook their animals without harming them. Make them exhausted, frustrated, and desperate to leave." That's actually brilliant. That's command. Sometimes the best victory is the one where nobody dies. 36 hours later, a messenger arrived at Morven's camp. The settlement would accept the terms. Temporary status while formal petitions were filed. Commitment to abide by the treaty review outcome. Full cooperation with the process. Morven sent confirmation back. Dispatched a report to the BlackRock Council. Crisis resolved without bloodshed. When she marched her warriors back to the clan hold, they were singing. None had died. None had even been injured, and they'd accomplished the mission. Vorgath met them at the gates, looking simultaneously impressed and irritated. "You negotiated," he said flatly. "I resolved the situation. As ordered. We expected you to use force. Force wasn't necessary. Diplomacy worked. Diplomacy is for politicians. Warriors fight. Warriors do what's necessary to win. Sometimes that's fighting. Sometimes it's talking. Sometimes it's making people uncomfortable until they choose to leave." Morven faced him directly. "I brought 20 warriors into a situation that could have turned bloody. I brought all 20 warriors home alive. That's what matters." Vorgath had no response to that. Inside the council chamber, Elder Brenna was smiling. "Acceptable work," she said. "The human settlement is processing formal petitions. The treaty is intact. No lives lost. You've accomplished what we hoped for." "Then I have the position, Bonda. You have a position, Captain of the Eastern Company. 40 warriors under your permanent command. You'll report to the War Council directly." Morven nodded. "I accept." "One condition," Thrain said. You'll train Vorgath. He's skilled, but lacks the kind of tactical thinking you demonstrated. He'll serve as your second for 6 months. Teach him what you know. Morven looked at Vorgath. He looked murderous. He doesn't want to learn from me, she said. He doesn't have a choice, neither do you. This is part of the position. Understood. After the council dismissed, Vorgath cornered Morven in the corridor. I don't need your teaching, he said. Then tell your uncle that. I'm telling you, I know how to command. You know how to give orders. That's not the same thing. Morven started walking. Come on, let's get this over with. You want to learn, I'll teach. You want to sulk. Do it on your own time. She led him to the training yard where her new company was assembling. 40 warriors ranging from green recruits to hardened veterans. First lesson, Morven said. Learn their names, all of them, by tomorrow. That's a waste of time. No, it's the foundation. You can't lead people you don't know. Can't make good tactical decisions if you don't understand who you're commanding. Names first, then capabilities, then trust. She lifted her right arm, showing the shackle. This is made from the broken weapons of 6 warriors who died under my command. 6 people whose names I'll never forget. Every decision I make, I feel this iron. Reminds me that command is about people, not just tactics. Vorgath stared at the shackle. For the first time, something other than contempt crossed his face. That must hurt, he said quietly. Every day. That's the point. Command should hurt, should weigh on you. If it doesn't, you're not taking it seriously enough. She turned to address the assembled company. I'm Captain Morven Steelhand. I don't care where you came from or what you did before. What I care about is what you do now. We're going to train together. Fight together. Learn to trust each other. Some of you will hate me. That's fine. Hate me. But listen to me, because I'm going to keep you alive. She paused, letting that sink in. I don't promise glory. I don't promise easy victories. What I promise is this: I will never spend your lives carelessly. Every order I give will be for a reason. Every risk will be calculated. And if we take casualties, I'll carry that weight. She lifted the shackle again. This is my promise. I remember the cost. I feel it. Every day. Now let's get to work. The training began, and Morven Steelhand, exile and outsider, started building something that looked surprisingly like a home. 6 months into her command, Morven had transformed the Eastern Company from a collection of individuals into a cohesive unit. They drilled daily, not just combat formations, but communication under stress, navigating difficult terrain, making decisions with incomplete information, learning to trust each other's judgment. Vorgath, to his credit, had actually started listening. He still bristled at taking orders from someone he considered an outsider, but he'd begun to see the value in Morven's methods. Knowing names actually does help, he admitted one evening after a particularly complex training exercise. I knew KL would charge forward because that's who he is. Adjusted the formation accordingly. Exactly, people aren't interchangeable pieces. They're individuals with patterns and tendencies. Learn those, you can predict behavior. Predict behavior, you can plan better. Still seems sentimental. Call it what you want, it works. The real test came in the 8th month. BlackRock received intelligence about a human military force moving toward the northern border. Not settlers, this time trained soldiers. 200 strong, moving with clear, hostile intent. The War Council debated for hours. Some wanted immediate military response. Others wanted to wait, confirm the threat was real before committing forces. Morven stood before them with a different proposal. Send me, she said. Give me my company and authorization to engage if necessary. I'll assess the situation, determine hostile intent, and respond appropriately. 40 warriors against 200. Elder Brenna looked skeptical. That's suicide if they're actually hostile. 40 well-trained warriors in defensive terrain can hold against 200 poorly organized infantry. I'm not proposing a pitched battle. I'm proposing reconnaissance with teeth. Thrain studied her. You think you can neutralize 200 soldiers without starting a full-scale war? I think I can determine what they're actually doing and respond proportionally. If they're hostile, I'll delay them long enough for reinforcements to arrive. If they're not, I'll prevent an unnecessary escalation. And if you're wrong, if you engage and they were peaceful, then I take responsibility. But intelligence suggests otherwise. These aren't colonists. They're moving in military formation with siege equipment. That's not a peaceful deployment. The council voted. Morven got her authorization. 3 days later, she marched north with her company. The northern border was different from the eastern mountains. Here the terrain was rocky and unforgiving. Deep ravines cut through plateaus. Visibility was excellent. You could see enemies coming from miles away, but that also meant enemies could see you. Morven positioned her company along a ridge overlooking the main pass. Below, the human force was indeed moving north, and they were definitely military. Count, she asked her who had the best eyes in the company. I make it 212, mix of heavy infantry and archers. 3 siege weapons looks like catapults. Supply train at the rear. Headed where current trajectory straight toward Stoneheart Hold. That was bad. Stoneheart was a major clan settlement. If the humans reached it with siege weapons, they could do serious damage before reinforcements arrived. But attacking first meant committing to war. And Morven wasn't sure that's what this was. Tormund, she called, how would you deploy 200 troops and siege equipment for a defensive campaign? The older warrior thought about it. Wouldn't. Siege weapons are offensive tools. You bring catapults when you plan to break walls, not defend territory. Agreed, so they're planning an attack. Question is against what? Does it matter, Vorgath asked. They're invading our territory with hostile force. We have authorization to engage. Authorization isn't obligation. We engage when we know the full picture. Morven pulled out her scope and studied the human force more carefully. Something was off about their formation. The siege weapons weren't properly protected. The supply train was too small for a sustained campaign. And the troops looked exhausted, not fresh. They're running from something, she said suddenly. What? Look at their formation. It's not offensive deployment. It's retreat. They're moving fast, sacrificing proper defensive positioning. They're not attacking, they're fleeing. She swept the scope behind the human force and saw it another force larger pursuing. Not orcs, other humans. Civil conflict, she muttered. This isn't an invasion, it's refugees. Refugees with siege weapons. Vorgath didn't sound convinced. Refugees who grabbed what they could when their settlement was attacked. Those catapults aren't for us, they're salvage. The only valuable equipment they could carry. Bryn squinted down at the formation. If you're right, what do? We find out for Shriana, then we decide. Morven selected 5 warriors, Bryn, Sarah, Kyle, and 2 veterans named Dren and Margot. They descended from the ridge under cover of dusk and approached the human camp. Getting close was easier than expected. The humans were exhausted, their sentries barely functional. Morven's group got within hearing distance of the command tent without being detected. Inside voices argued in human tongue. Morven translated quietly for her warriors. Can't keep this pace. The troops are falling apart. We stopped Caldris's forces catch us. You want to explain that to the survivors? There are no good options here, but pushing into orc territory is suicide. They'll kill us just for being here. Better quick death from orcs than slow death from Caldris. At least orcs fight honorably. Morven's jaw tightened. She'd heard enough. She stood and walked directly toward the tent, her warriors scrambling to follow. The human sentries saw her and shouted alarm. Within seconds, 20 soldiers had weapons drawn surrounding Morven's group. I need to speak with your commander, Morven said in clear human tongue. One of the soldiers, a grizzled veteran with scars that marked him as career military, studied her. You're orc military. Captain Morven Steelhand, Eastern Company Blackrock Clan. You're in our territory without permission. I want to know why. We'll leave by morning. We're just passing through. With siege weapons and 200 troops. That's not passing through, that's invasion. That's desperation. A new voice. A human man emerged from the tent, older, lean, with the exhausted look of someone who'd been running too long. I'm Commander Rickard Vale, and you're right to question us. But we're not here to attack. We're running from one. Explain, Vale gestured to the tent. Inside, I'll tell you everything. Your warriors stay here. They come with me. Then my guards come too. Fair. Inside the tent, Vale spread a map on a rough table. 3 weeks ago, Lord Caldris, a human noble with territorial ambitions, attacked our settlement. We're border guards sworn to protect civilian trade routes. Caldris wanted the routes for himself. wanted to control the trade taxes. Why not appeal to your government? Caldress owns half the regional governors. By the time we got official response, we'd all be dead. So we grabbed what we could, the siege weapons, because they were the only assets valuable enough to trade for safe passage somewhere, and ran north into Orc territory. Ran toward the only border where Caldress wouldn't follow. He knows starting conflict with the Orcs would bring his superiors down on him. So we figured, Vale laughed bitterly, we figured we'd either find sanctuary or die quickly. Both were better than what Caldress had planned. Morven studied him. Everything in his voice said he was telling the truth, but truth didn't change tactical reality. You're asking us to harbor human refugees. That's politically complicated. I'm asking you to show mercy to people who have nowhere else to go. Mercy is expensive, especially when it means angering your superiors by providing sanctuary. Then don't think of it as mercy. Think of it as opportunity. Vale pointed to the siege weapons on the map. 3 catapults fully functional, modern design. We'll trade them for safe passage through your territory. You get military assets. We get to survive. Everyone wins, except Caldress. Caldress can rot. Morven considered this. 3 catapults were significant assets. Blackrock didn't have siege capability. These weapons could change defensive capabilities substantially, but accepting refugees set a precedent, and precedents had consequences. I need to consult with my command, she said. How long? 3 hours. Keep your people here. Don't move. We'll have an answer by dawn. Back at her ridge position, Morven assembled her company and explained the situation. The debate was immediate. It's a trap, Vorgath said. They're lying about Caldress. This is advanced force for an invasion. Their formation doesn't support that, Sarah countered. They're genuinely exhausted. Their supplies are nearly gone. Nobody runs an invasion like this. We could take the catapults by force, Kale suggested. Attack now, kill them all, claim the weapons. And start a war, Bryn said. Killing 200 humans guarantees their government will respond. This gets complicated fast. Tormund had been quiet, now he spoke. What does the captain think? All eyes turned to Morven. She looked down at the shackle on her wrist, felt the weight of the iron pressing into scar tissue. Remembered the 6 warriors whose weapons had made it. She'd forged this reminder after making a choice that saved civilians but cost soldiers. Now she was facing another version of the same choice. Save refugees, potentially complicate Blackrock's political position. Turn them away, protect the clan, but send 200 people to die. I think, she said slowly, that we have an opportunity to do something right without significant risk. We grant temporary passage, escort them to the western border. Take the catapults as payment. If Caldress pursues, we deal with him. If he doesn't, we've helped people who needed it and gained valuable assets. The council won't like it, Vorgath warned. The council authorized me to use my judgment. This is my judgment. And if it goes wrong, then it's my responsibility. Same as always. She sent a runner back to Blackrock with a message, engaging diplomatic solution. We'll report fully upon return. Then she went back to Vale's camp. You have passage, she told him. 3 days escort to the western border. The catapults come with us. You get safe passage and supplies for the journey. After the border, you're on your own. Vale's relief was visible. Thank you, we won't forget this. Make sure you don't. Someday I might need to collect on the favor. The 3-day escort was tense. Morven's warriors flanked the human column, watching for threats external and internal. The humans were nervous, exhausted, clearly expecting betrayal. On the 2nd day, Caldress's forces appeared on the southern horizon. 50 cavalry moving fast. Too few to engage the full human column, but enough to harass and delay. They're going to hit us, Vale said, riding up beside Morven. Try to slow us down until their main force arrives. Let them try. Morven repositioned her company, put her best archers on the high ground, set spear warriors in defensive formation protecting the civilians, used the terrain to negate the cavalry's mobility advantage. When Caldress's riders attacked, they rode into a killing field. Morven's archers took down a dozen horses in the first volley. The cavalry charge broke against her spear line, unable to penetrate the formation. Within minutes, the survivors were retreating, leaving their dead behind. Morven shouted back, These people are 100. Oh, I'm dying. Marvin shouted. These people are under BlackRock protection now. Come back and we'll show you what happens to nobles who chase refugees onto clan lands. The rider fled. That night around the campfire, Vale approached Morven. You didn't have to fight for us, he said. Could have let Caldrus take his people and kept clear of the conflict. Could have, didn't want to. Why not? Morven held up her shackled wrist. This is made from the weapons of 6 warriors who died because I made a choice to protect civilians at the cost of soldiers, wore it, so I'd never forget what command costs. You think I'm going to let Caldrus murder refugees after carrying that reminder? Vale stared at the iron. That must hurt. Every day, but it hurts worse to forget why it's there. You're not like the stories. Stories say orcs are brutal, savage. Some are. Some humans are too. Most of us are just people trying to do the right thing in situations that don't have clear answers. She looked at him. What will you do after the border? Find somewhere that needs soldiers who aren't afraid of work. Start over. Try to build something better than what we lost. Good luck with that. Thank you for everything. They reached the western border on the 3rd day. Morven's company escorted the refugees across, made sure they had supplies, and watched them disappear into human territory. The catapults stayed behind, 3 significant weapons that BlackRock hadn't owned before. When Morven marched her company home, Vorgath rode beside her. You took a risk, he said. I took a calculated risk. Difference. The council might not see it that way. Then they'll discipline me. Won't be the first time. Won't change that it was the right call. You're stubborn. So I've been told. Vorgath was quiet for a moment. Then I'm starting to understand why you wear that shackle. It's not punishment, it's accountability. Visible reminder that your choices matter. Took you long enough to figure that out. I'm slow, but I get there eventually. He paused. Thank you for teaching me. I didn't want to learn from you, but I needed to. You're welcome. Now stop being sentimental. It's disturbing. They both laughed. When they reached BlackRock, the council was indeed displeased, but they couldn't argue with results. The refugees were gone, no conflict with the human government, and BlackRock now possessed 3 valuable siege weapons. Elder Brenna pulled Morven aside after the formal report. You keep making decisions that should get you in trouble, but somehow work out, she said. I make decisions based on tactical reality and moral calculation. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. When they don't, I accept the consequences. Like the first time, when you defied orders. Yes. Do you regret it? Morven touched the shackle. I regret the 6 warriors who died. I don't regret the choice that saved 5,000 civilians. Both can be true. Brenna nodded slowly. That's wisdom. Real wisdom, not the kind you learn from books, the kind you earn through pain. Is there another kind? I don't think so, not for commanders. She looked at the shackle. How long will you wear that? Until I forget why it's there, which means probably forever. Good. Leaders who forget the cost are dangerous. Keep being the kind of leader who remembers. 1 year into her command, Morven had built a reputation. Warriors requested transfers to her company. Other clan commanders asked for training advice. Even Thrain grudgingly admitted she'd exceeded expectations. But success brought new problems. There were orcs in BlackRock who resented an outsider holding such prominent position, who whispered that she was too soft, too willing to negotiate, too concerned with enemy lives. The whispers turned to action when Captain Krell, a traditionalist who believed orcs should dominate through strength alone, formally challenged her position. She's weak, Krell declared in council. She negotiates when she should fight, shows mercy when she should show steel. She's making our clan soft. She's accomplished every mission assigned, Brenna countered, through diplomacy and compromise. Those aren't orc values. We're warriors. We should act like it. Thrain looked at Morven. Response. I've never claimed to be traditional. I claim to be effective. My company has 0 losses in 12 months. We've secured 3 treaty agreements and acquired significant military assets. If that's weakness, I don't understand the word. Numbers aren't everything, Krell said. Spirit matters. Courage matters. Your warriors are learning to think instead of fight. That makes them hesitant. Hesitant warriors die. My warriors are learning to think and fight. That makes them dangerous. I'll put my company against yours any day. Then let's test that. Combat trial. My unit against yours. See who's better trained. Morven started to refuse. She didn't need to prove anything, but Vorgath caught her eye and shook his head slightly. This was political. If she refused, Krell could claim she was afraid. Fine, she said. What are the terms? Full engagement. No restrictions. First side to surrender or be eliminated loses. People will get hurt in full engagement. Warriors get hurt. It's part of training. Training, yes. Unnecessary casualties in an ego contest, no. We'll do tactical exercises. Each side gets objectives to accomplish. First to complete wins. Krell looked disappointed but agreed. 1 week, Northern Training Ground. Bring your best. The week passed quickly. Morven drilled her company constantly, running complex scenarios, testing communication under stress. He's going to try overwhelming force, Tormund predicted. Hit hard, hit fast, count on us being unprepared for aggressive tactics. Let him, we'll be prepared. The trial took place on a cold morning with half of Blackrock watching. Krell's company, 60 warriors, all veteran, all aggressive, deployed in textbook assault formation. Heavy center mobile flanks archery support. Morven's company deployed in something that looked disorganized but wasn't. Scattered positions, no obvious command structure. Small mobile groups instead of tight formations. The objective was simple capture and hold a fortified position at the center of the training ground. First side to hold it for 10 continuous minutes won. Krell's force charged immediately. Overwhelming force toward the objective. Morven's company scattered, pulling back, looking like they were in full retreat. Krell's warriors took the objective within 5 minutes. Started celebrating. Then Morven's counterattack began. Her scattered forces converged from multiple directions simultaneously. Small groups hit weak points in Krell's formation. They weren't trying to overwhelm, they were trying to disrupt. Within minutes, Krell's defensive formation was chaos. Warriors were responding to threats from every direction. Communication was breaking down. Command structure was fracturing. Morven had planned this specifically. She'd studied Krell's tactics, knew he relied on brute force and straightforward strategy. So she'd given him what he expected, a weak opponent retreating, then punished him for assuming it was real. Her warriors didn't need to win a direct fight. They just needed to prevent Krell from holding the objective for 10 consecutive minutes. They succeeded. Every time Krell's forces seemed to have secured the position, another small team would infiltrate and disrupt. The clock would reset. Krell would have to reorganize. After 30 minutes of this, Krell's warriors were exhausted and frustrated. Morven's were still fresh. They'd been rotating teams, always keeping someone rested. Finally, Morven's company launched a full assault. Fresh warriors against tired ones. Superior coordination against confused command. The outcome was predetermined. Krell's force surrendered after 15 minutes of fighting. In the aftermath, as both companies were recovering, Krell approached Morven. That wasn't warrior combat, he said bitterly. That was trickery. That was tactics. Strategy. Using our advantages, better communication, better training, better adaptability to counter your advantages in punning and aggression. It's not honorable. It's effective. I'll take effective over honorable every time when my warriors' lives are at stake. You fight like a coward. Morven looked at him coldly. I fight like someone who remembers that every warrior under my command is a person, not a game piece. Your tactics would have cost lives in real combat. Mine saved them. Call it cowardice if you want. I call it competence. She walked away, leaving Krell standing there. That night, Elder Brenna called her to private meeting. You've made an enemy, Brenna said. Krell won't forget being humiliated. He humiliated himself by assuming superiority. I just took advantage. True, but politics are complicated. You're an outsider still. You've risen fast. That breeds resentment. What do you suggest? Be careful, watch your back, and keep being excellent. Success is the best defense against jealousy, but it's not a perfect defense. Morven nodded. Understood. One more thing. Brenna gestured to the shackle. That mark, it makes people uncomfortable. Reminds them that command has costs. Most commanders want to forget that. Pretend their decisions don't weigh on them. You wear yours openly. It makes them feel judged. I'm not trying to judge anyone. Doesn't matter. Your existence is judgment. The shackle is visible proof that you take responsibility. That makes commanders who don't take responsibility look bad by comparison. So I should hide it. Gods no. Keep wearing it. Keep being the kind of leader who remembers. Just understand that it will make you enemies among those who'd rather forget. Morven looked down at the iron band. The metal had become part of her skin over the years. She couldn't remove it now, even if she wanted to, which she didn't. I can live with enemies, she said. I can't live with forgetting why this matters. Then you'll do fine. Enemies are temporary. Principles last. 2 years into her command, Morven received an unexpected message. It came from the northern clans, from her original home. Her father was dying. He wanted to see her before the end. Morven hadn't spoken to him in 7 years. Not since he'd chosen political survival over defending her. Not since she'd left rather than accept punishment for refusing orders that would have cost civilian lives. She stared at the message for a long time. Vorgath found her in the armory, sharpening weapons she'd already sharpened 3 times. Bad news, he asked. Personal news. My father is dying, wants to see me. Will you go? I don't know. Part of me says he made his choice when he didn't defend me. Part of me says he's still my father and I should make peace before he's gone. Both can be true, Morven smiled slightly. You've been learning. I have a good teacher. Vorgath sat down on a nearby crate. For what it's worth, I think you should go. Not because he deserves it, because you deserve closure, whatever that looks like. When did you get wise? About 6 months ago when I finally started actually listening instead of just hearing. He gestured to the shackle. You wear that as reminder of the cost of your choices. Maybe seeing your father is about understanding the cost of his choices. Not to forgive, just to understand. Morven thought about this. I'll need to request leave. I'll cover your duties. Go. Make peace or make war with your past. Either way, do it so you can move forward without it weighing on you. She requested leave. Brenna granted it immediately. 3 days later, Morven rode north toward the clan that had been her first home. The northern clans looked smaller than she remembered, or maybe she'd just grown beyond them. Her father lay in a bed that seemed too large for his diminished frame. The powerful warrior she remembered had become a thin old man who struggled to breathe. Morven, he said when she entered, you came. You asked. I thought you might refuse. Would have been justified. She sat in the chair beside his bed. Why did you ask me to come? To tell you I was wrong, to apologize, to try to make amends before I face whatever comes next. That's a lot to accomplish in one conversation. I know, but I have to try my... He coughed, the sound wet and painful. When you refused orders at the pass, I knew you were right. Strategically, morally, you saved thousands of lives. But I also knew that defending you would cost me political capital I thought I needed. So you chose your position over your daughter. I chose survival over principle. I told myself it was pragmatic, that someone had to maintain power to protect the clan, that your sacrifice would serve the greater good. He met her eyes. I was wrong, I was a coward, and I've regretted it every day since. Morven looked down at her shackle. I wear this as reminder of the cost of my choices. What reminder do you wear for yours? Shame, regret, the knowledge that I broke something that can't be repaired. Good, he flinched. You hate me. I don't hate you. Hate requires energy I don't want to spend, but I don't forgive you either. You made a choice. I made a different choice. We both live with consequences. Can I ask what you've done since leaving? Morven told him about BlackRock, about the Eastern Company, about the choices she'd made, the missions she'd run, the warriors she'd trained. Her father listened, occasionally asking questions, looking increasingly proud and sad in equal measure. You became the commander I should have been, he said finally. Someone who leads with principle, who makes hard choices and accepts the weight. I'm proud of you, for whatever that's worth. It's worth knowing, Doesn't change the past, but it's worth knowing. He reached out with a trembling hand, touched the shackle. 6 warriors, he said. You carry them with you. Always. I carry ghosts too. Warriors I spent carelessly when I had other options. Soldiers I sacrificed for political gain instead of tactical necessity. The difference is you wear yours openly. I hide mine. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe if more commanders wore their costs openly, we'd make better decisions. He smiled weakly. You're wiser than I was at your age. Wiser than I am now. I had good teachers. You taught me discipline. The warriors I lost taught me responsibility. Pain taught me care. All of it together made me who I am. Will you stay until the end? Morven considered this. I'll stay, not because I forgive you, because everyone deserves someone there at the end, even people who made mistakes. Thank you. She stayed for 3 days, sat with him, talked about old campaigns, old warriors, old victories, and defeats. They didn't resolve everything. Some wounds were too deep for healing. But when he died on the 3rd night, she was holding his hand. She buried him beside her mother, stood at the grave in the cold northern wind, and felt nothing, not grief, not relief, just emptiness where there had been anger. Maybe that was closure. Maybe it was just exhaustion. She wasn't sure. Before leaving, she spoke with the current clan leadership. They'd heard about her work in Blackrock, asked if she'd consider returning to command Northern forces. She refused. This isn't my home anymore, she said. Hasn't been for 7 years. I've built something different, something better. I'm not coming back to fix what you broke. Your father would have wanted you here. My father wanted a lot of things he didn't earn. I make my own choices now. She rode back to Blackrock feeling lighter than she had in years. The anger she'd carried had transmuted into something else. Not forgiveness, not acceptance, just acknowledgement. Her father had made choices. She'd made different choices. Both had consequences. Neither had to define her future. When she arrived back at Blackrock, her company was waiting. 40 warriors who'd become more than soldiers, who'd become family. Vorgath approached. How was it? Complicated, painful, necessary. Did you find what you needed? I found closure. Whether I needed it remains to be seen. She looked at her warriors, at the company she'd built, at the home she'd found. I'm glad to be back, she said. Let's get to work. 5 years after arriving at Blackrock, Morven Steelhand was more than a company captain. She'd become something unexpected, a symbol. Warriors throughout the clan spoke of the commander who wore her costs openly, who remembered every loss, who fought smart instead of hard, who brought her people home alive. But symbols attract attention, and not all attention is welcome. The summons came on a winter morning report to the capital. The High Council wanted to speak with her. Blackrock was a single clan among many. The High Council represented the unified Orc territories, made decisions that affected all clans collectively. Being summoned there meant politics at a level Morven had successfully avoided for years. This is either very good or very bad, Brenna said when Morven told her. The council doesn't summon random captains for casual conversation. I'm not random, I'm notorious. That's not better. What do they want? Officially, they want to discuss matters of mutual interest. Unofficially, no idea. Could be promotion, could be investigation, could be they want to use you as example, good or bad. Should I be worried? Always, but go anyway. Refusing a council summons is career suicide. Morven brought Vorgath with her. He'd been formally promoted to lieutenant after 4 years of competent service and had earned the right to represent the company. The capital was massive, 10 times the size of Blackrock's hold. Stone buildings rose 5 stories high. Markets sprawled across entire districts. Warriors from every clan walked the streets, their different armor and markings identifying their homes. The council chamber was deliberately intimidating, carved from a single massive cave, with acoustics that made every word echo, with seating for hundreds of observers, while the council sat elevated on a carved platform. 12 council members, each representing major clan alliances, each with decades of political experience in the sharp eyes of people who'd survived by reading others. The speaker, an ancient orc named Karsa, With white hair and scars from wars, most people only read about addressed Morven directly. Captain Steelhand, you've built a reputation. I've done my job, Speaker. More than that, you've become known. Warriors speak of your methods. Commanders study your tactics. You're mentioned in reports from multiple clans. You've attracted notice. Is that a problem? That depends. Tell me about your philosophy of command. Morven touched the shackle unconsciously. Command is responsibility. Every order affects people with lives and families. I make decisions based on tactical reality and moral calculation. I try to bring my warriors home alive while accomplishing our missions. Sometimes those goals conflict. When they do, I make the best choice I can and accept the consequences. And the shackle, the visible reminder, is exactly that. Reminder that my choices have weight. That command isn't glory, it's burden. That I never forget the cost. Karsa leaned forward. You refused orders once, at a mountain pass. Disobeyed direct commands because you judged them wrong. I did. That's insubordination. That's leadership. Sometimes commanders receive orders from people who don't understand the situation on the ground. Sometimes the right tactical decision means disobeying the chain of command. I make those calls when I have to. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, some approving, some scandalized. That's a dangerous philosophy. Another council member said, Thorgrim, representing the Eastern Territories. If every commander decided which orders to follow, we'd have chaos. If every commander blindly followed every order, regardless of tactical reality, we'd have unnecessary deaths. There's a balance. I try to find it. How? Karsa asked. How do you decide when to obey and when to refuse? I ask, will following this order accomplish the mission's actual purpose? Will it protect the people I'm sworn to protect? Will the cost be justified by the outcome? If the answers are yes, I follow orders even when they're difficult. If the answers are no, I find another way. And if your superiors disagree with your assessment, then I accept consequences. Same as I did when I left my original clan. I made a choice I believe was right. They disagreed. I paid the price. Karsa sat back, studying her. The reason we summoned you, Captain, is that we're facing a situation that requires exactly your kind of thinking. We have a problem that can't be solved through traditional military force. It requires someone who can see beyond standard tactics, someone who can make hard decisions and live with the consequences. What kind of situation? A clan is fracturing, internal conflict. Two factions both claiming legitimate authority. They're on the verge of civil war. If they fight, it will destabilize the entire region. We need someone to go there, assess the situation, and resolve it. Resolve it how? However necessary. Negotiation, mediation, force if needed. We're giving you full authority to make whatever calls you judge appropriate. Morven's instincts screamed that this was a trap. Why me? Because the clan in question is your original home. The Northern Territories. The current leadership reached out asking specifically for you. Her stomach dropped. They exiled me. They asked you to leave, different thing legally, and the current leadership wasn't responsible for that decision. They're new, young, and they're asking for help from someone they know can navigate impossible situations. What's the actual conflict? Succession dispute. The previous chief died without clear heir. Two candidates, both with legitimate claims. Both refusing to back down. Warriors are choosing sides. Violence is escalating. If we don't intervene, it becomes civil war. Send a council mediator. We tried. Both sides rejected external mediation, said they'd only accept someone who understood Northern culture, someone they could trust to be fair. And they think that's me, after I left in disgrace. They think you're someone who prioritizes doing the right thing over political convenience. That makes you rare. That makes you valuable. Morven looked at Vorgath. He shrugged your call. What's my authority? Absolute. Within the Northern Territories, for the duration of this assignment, you have council mandate. Your decisions are binding. Both factions have agreed to abide by your judgment. And if they don't, then we send military intervention, which means massive casualties and lasting resentment. Better to solve this before it reaches that point. Morven thought about the northern clans, about the home she'd left, about the warriors she'd known who were probably choosing sides right now. I'll need my company. You can have 50 warriors, mix of your company and council guards. I choose my own people. Agreed. And I want complete transparency. Both factions get access to all information I receive. No secret deals, no hidden agendas. Everything open. Karsa smiled slightly. That's either brilliantly principled or strategically naive. It's how I work. Take it or find someone else. We'll take it. Report back when it's resolved or when you need support, whichever comes first. The journey north took a week. Morven brought her core team Vorgoth Bryn, Tormund Sarakail, and 40 others. Mix of veterans and younger warriors. People she'd trained, people she trusted. During the march, she briefed them constantly. This isn't a military operation. This is mediation with the threat of force backing it. Our job is to understand both sides, find common ground, and prevent violence. And if we can't find common ground, Sarah asked, then we make a call, choose the better candidate, support them with enough authority that the opposition backs down. That's choosing sides. That's making a decision when both options are imperfect. That's command. They reached the northern territories on the 8th day. The tension was immediately visible. Warriors in different colored bands identifying faction allegiance. Camps separated by 100 yards. Sentries watching each other with hands near weapons. The two candidates met Morven in neutral ground, an old council chamber that hadn't been used in years. Candidate 1 was Dravok, a warrior commander mid-30s with the bearing of someone born to lead. Strong, confident, experienced. Candidate 2 was Irina, a younger woman late 20s who'd served as the previous chief's advisor. Brilliant strategically, but untested in command. Both had legitimate claims, both had support, both believed they were right. Thank you for coming, Dravok said. The situation is complex. The situation is simple, Irina interrupted. Dravok wants power. I want stability. He'll lead us into wars we can't win. I'll lead us to prosperity through trade and diplomacy. Prosperity without strength is vulnerability, Dravok countered. She'll weaken us until enemies see us as targets. He'll strengthen us until we become the enemies others need to target. It's a false choice between aggression and weakness. Morven held up a hand. Before this becomes a philosophical debate, let's establish facts. What do your warriors want? Glory, Irina said bitterly. Conquest, the pride of being feared. Security, Dravok said. The strength to protect what's ours, the respect that prevents invasion. So both want the same thing expressed differently. That's a start. She spent the next 3 days interviewing warriors from both factions, asking questions, listening more than talking, trying to understand what was really driving this conflict. What she found was predictable. This wasn't about the candidates at all. It was about fear. Dravok's supporters feared the clan was becoming weak, that Irina's diplomatic approach would invite aggression from neighbors. Irina's supporters feared Dravok would lead them into unnecessary wars, that his warrior mentality would waste lives on conflicts that could be avoided. Both fears were valid. Both were also based on assumptions that might not be true. On the 4th day, Morven called both candidates to private meeting. Here's what I see, she said. You're both qualified. You both want what's best for the clan. You're both afraid the other's approach will lead to disaster, and you're both probably right in different situations. So choose between us, Dravok said. That's why you're here. Maybe, or maybe there's another option. Like what? Shared leadership. Dravok handles military and defense. Irina handles diplomacy and trade. You check each other's excesses. You combine your strengths. That's unprecedented, Irina said. Precedent is just things we've done before. Doesn't mean they're the only things we can do. Shared leadership would be chaos, Dravok argued. Someone has to have final authority. In military situations, you do. In diplomatic situations, she does. In policy decisions, you debate until you agree or until the council breaks the tie. It's not perfect, but it's better than civil war. They both looked skeptical. What if we can't agree, Irina asked. What if we deadlock on important decisions? Then you're forced to compromise, which is what leadership should be anyway. I've watched commanders make unilateral decisions without input. Sometimes it works. Often it creates problems they don't see because they're not listening to other perspectives. Morven lifted her shackled wrist. I wear this because I made a unilateral decision that cost lives. It was the right decision, but it still had costs. If I'd had someone checking my thinking, challenging my assumptions, I might have found a better option. Or I might have made the same call with more confidence. Either way, having another perspective would have helped. She looked at both of them. You represent different perspectives. Both valid, both necessary. Instead of fighting over who gets sole authority, why not use both approaches? Be the clan that thinks and fights, that negotiates and defends, that combines strength with wisdom. Dravok and Irina looked at each other. It could work, Irina said slowly, if we trust each other, if we commit to making it work. Big ifs, Dravok said, but he didn't sound dismissive. He sounded thoughtful. I'll support this, he said finally, but I want it formalized. Clear division of responsibilities. Defined process for resolving disputes. This isn't vague cooperation, it's structured partnership. Agreed, Irina said, and I want regular council review. Check that we're actually serving the clan's interest, not just our own egos. Done, Morven stood. I'll draft the formal structure. You'll review it. We'll present it to both factions together. They vote on accepting it or continuing the conflict. And if they choose to continue, then I make a choice. Select one of you. Support them with council authority. Force the issue. But I'd rather not do that. I'd rather give your people a third option that's better than the two you've been offering. The proposal was presented 3 days later to assembled warriors from both factions. The reaction was mixed. Some loved it, finally a solution that didn't require choosing between valid concerns. Some hated it. Tradition demanded single leadership. This was compromise, weakness. Dravok addressed his supporters. Some of you think I'm abandoning you by accepting this. I'm not. I'm gaining a check on my worst impulses. I'm a warrior. I solve problems through force. That's my strength and my weakness. Irina solves problems through negotiation. That's her strength and weakness. Together we cover each other's blind spots. Irina addressed hers. Some of you think I'm surrendering to military thinking. I'm not. I'm ensuring military action happens only when it's genuinely necessary. Dravok won't be able to launch unnecessary wars because I'll be asking hard questions about justification and cost. And I won't be able to avoid necessary conflicts because he'll be pushing me to acknowledge when diplomacy has failed. The debate lasted hours, arguments flew, voices were raised, but slowly, grudgingly, consensus formed. This wasn't perfect, but it was better than civil war. The vote was 73% in favor. Not unanimous, but strong enough. Morven spent another week helping establish the formal structure, writing the documents, defining the processes, making sure both leaders understood their roles. Before leaving, she met with each privately. To Dravok, you're strong. Use that strength to protect, not conquer. Let Irina challenge you. Let her make you think before you act. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. To Irina, you're smart. Use that intelligence to build, not manipulate. Let Dravok push you. Let him make you act when thinking becomes paralysis. That's not aggression, that's courage. To both, you'll fight, often, that's fine. Fighting means you care. Just make sure you're fighting for the clan, not with each other. The moment this becomes personal, it falls apart. When she marched her company south, the northern territories were quiet. Not peaceful, there was still tension, still resentment from both factions. But quiet. The crisis was over. Vorgath rode beside her. That was good work. That was acceptable work. We prevented civil war. But those two will struggle. They'll make mistakes. They'll drive each other crazy. It's not a perfect solution. There are no perfect solutions, just better options among bad ones. Since when did you become a philosopher? Since I spent 5 years learning from someone who thinks about this stuff constantly. He gestured at the shackle. You going to add anything to that for this mission? No, no one died, nothing to remember except that sometimes the right answer is more complicated than a binary choice. Think it will last, the shared leadership? Maybe, maybe not. But it gives them a chance. Sometimes that's all you can do, give people a chance to choose something better. Whether they take it is up to them. Back at BlackRock, Morven submitted her report to the council. Karsa read it carefully. Shared leadership. Unprecedented. Unusual, Morven corrected, not unprecedented. History has examples. They're just rare. The Northern clan seems satisfied. That's what matters. Karsa set down the report. The council is pleased. You've resolved a situation that could have destabilized an entire region. You did it without violence, without taking sides, without creating lasting resentment. That's exceptional work. I did my job. You exceeded your job, which brings us to the real reason I asked you here. Karsa leaned forward. The council wants to create a new position. Crisis mediator, someone who travels to conflicts and resolves them before they become wars. Someone who can think strategically, act decisively, and make hard calls. We want you for that position. Morven's stomach sank. I'm a company captain. That's where I belong. You're wasted as a company captain. Your skills are too valuable to limit to 40 warriors. This position would give you broader authority, larger impact, real ability to prevent conflicts instead of just managing them. It would also mean leaving my company, traveling constantly, living out of a pack instead of building something stable. Yes, but think of what you could accomplish. How many conflicts you could prevent. How many lives you could save. Morven touched the shackle, thought about the 6 warriors whose weapons had made it, thought about the company she'd built over 5 years, thought about the home she'd found. I need time to think about this, she said. Take a week, but understand this opportunity won't wait forever. We need someone in this position. If you refuse, we'll find someone else. They might not be as good, but we'll find them. Back at BlackRock, Morven gathered her core team, Vorgath, Bryn, Tormund, Sarah Kale. The council offered me a position, she said, crisis mediator. Travel to conflicts. Resolve them. It's important work. Broader impact than what I'm doing now. But, Vorgath prompted, but it means leaving you, leaving the company, starting over somewhere else. Silence. Then Sarah spoke. What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me says this is exactly what I should do. Use my skills where they'll do the most good. Part of me says I've finally built something good here. Why leave it? Both are valid, Bryn said. Not contradictory, just different priorities. So how do I choose? Ask yourself what you'll regret more, Tormund said. Taking the position and missing this company, or staying here and wondering what you could have accomplished. Morven thought about that for a long time. Finally, she made her decision. The announcement came at the next company assembly. 40 warriors gathered. Morven stood before them, the iron shackle visible on her wrist. I've been offered a position with the High Council, she said. Crisis mediator. It's important work. It would mean leaving this company. Murmurs, surprise, disappointment. I'm refusing it. The murmurs turned to confusion. I'm refusing because I've learned something over these 5 years. Impact isn't measured by scope. It's measured by depth. I can travel to different conflicts and solve them temporarily. Or I can stay here and build something that lasts. Train warriors who'll become leaders themselves. Create a culture of thoughtful command that spreads beyond this company. She looked at Vorgath. Lieutenant Vorgath came to me 5 years ago thinking I was too soft, too willing to negotiate, too concerned with enemy lives. Now he's one of the best tactical thinkers in the clan because he learned to combine strength with wisdom. She looked at Sarah. Warrior Sarah was overlooked for promotion because she was small. Now she's training other warriors in tactics that don't require overwhelming physical strength. She looked at Kyle. Warrior Kale wanted revenge for his brother's death. Now he understands that honor isn't about killing enemies, it's about protecting the people who depend on you. She addressed them all. Every one of you has grown, learned, become better warriors and better people. That's my impact. Not in solving distant crises, in building something here that will outlast me. In creating a company that understands command as responsibility, that victory without unnecessary death is better than glorious slaughter, that thinking is as important as fighting. She lifted the shackled wrist. I wear this to remember cost, to never forget that my choices affect people with lives and families. If I take that council position, I'll be making choices that affect people I've never met. Resolving crises in places I don't know. That might be important, but it's not where I can do the most good. Here with you, I know exactly who I'm leading. I've learned your names, your strengths, your fears. I've built trust over years. I've created something that works. I'm not throwing that away for a position that sounds impressive, but would make me less effective. Silence. Then Vorgath started the traditional chest pound salute. The others joined. The sound echoed through the hall. After the assembly, Brenna found Morven. You refused the council position? I did. Bold. Most warriors would kill for that opportunity. Most warriors measure success by rank and scope. I measure it differently. How? By whether I'm making a real difference. By whether the warriors under my command are better for having served with me. By whether I'm building something that will outlast my life. Brenna nodded slowly. Your father would be proud. He wanted glory. You want legacy. That's wiser. My father taught me what not to do. That was his greatest lesson. And what about the shackle? Will you ever remove it? Morven looked down at the iron band fused now with scar tissue and bone. Can't remove it even if I wanted to. It's part of me now. The metal's become part of my body. Good. Leaders who forget the cost are dangerous. Keep being the one who remembers. 10 years after arriving at Blackrock, Morven's company had become legendary. Warriors throughout the territories requested transfer. Commanders studied her methods. The phrase, "fight like Steel Hands Company," meant tactical brilliance combined with minimal casualties. She trained 3 generations of warriors. Some had left to command their own units. Some had stayed, becoming core of the company's institutional knowledge. All carried forward the principles she'd taught. Remember the cost, think before fighting, bring people home alive. Vorgath now commanded the Southern Company, 40 warriors trained in Morven's methods. Sarah led the scout division. Kyle had become a master instructor, teaching new recruits that true courage was making hard decisions, not taking stupid risks. Morven herself had been promoted to battalion commander, 4 companies under her authority. But she still spent most of her time with the original Eastern Company, still drilled with them, still learned their names, still wore the shackle that marked her as different from other commanders. One morning, a young warrior named Dara approached her after training. Captain, can I ask about your shackle? You can ask. Why do you wear it? Everyone has theories, but no one knows for sure. Morven held up her wrist, showing the crude iron band. I forged this 11 years ago from the broken weapons of 6 warriors who died under my command. Warriors who did it because I refused in order to retreat. I made a choice that saved thousands of civilian lives but cost 6 soldiers. This reminds me that command is choosing between terrible options and living with the consequences. Do you regret the choice? I regret the cod. I don't regret the choice. Both can be true. But why wear it? Why not just remember? Because memory fades, because it's easy to forget costs when they're not visible. Because I want every warrior who serves with me to know that I take their lives seriously, that I'm not spending them carelessly, that I'm carrying the weight of command instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Dara was quiet for a moment. Then my last commander never talked about cost, said warriors exist to die gloriously, that casualties were expected and honorable. Your last commander was a fool. Warriors exist to accomplish missions and come home alive. Casualties are sometimes necessary, never glorious. Anyone who thinks otherwise has never actually lost people they cared about. Is that why warriors want to serve with you? Because you care. Warriors want to serve with me because I'm effective. The caring is just what makes me effective. Hard to lead people you don't value. Hard to make good tactical decisions when you're treating warriors like disposable assets. Dara looked at the shackle. Do you think I could I forge something similar to remember the warriors I've lost? You've lost warriors. My first command, 3 years ago, 5 soldiers died in an ambush I should have seen coming. I carry their names, but I want something physical. Something that reminds me never to make that mistake again. Morven studied the young warrior, saw genuine remorse, genuine desire to be better. Come with me, she said. She led Dara to the forge, showed her the process, how to melt metal, how to shape it, how to make something that would last. It's going to hurt, Morven warned. Sealing hot metal to skin causes severe burns. You'll probably pass out. Infection is a serious risk. I know, I still want to do it. Why, Paul? Because I need to remember. Because I don't want to become the kind of commander who forgets that warriors are people. Because I've seen what you've built here, and I want to build something similar. And I think this, she gestured at Morven's shackle, is part of how you stay grounded. Morven helped her forge a simple iron band, smaller than Morven's, easier to work, but made with the same intention. When it was ready, glowing white hot, Dara pressed it to her forearm and held it there. She screamed, passed out, woke gasping. Morven treated the burn with medicines, wrapped it carefully. That was stupid, she said. Brave, but stupid. Felt necessary, Dara said through gritted teeth. It was, just like mine was. But understand, this isn't just a symbol. This is a commitment. You're choosing to carry visible reminder of cost. Every day, forever. People will ask, people will judge. People will think you're either noble or crazy. What do you think? I think you're a warrior who understands that command is weight. That makes you rare. That makes you valuable. Over the next year, 6 more warriors forged their own reminders. Not copies of Morven's shackle, each was different, personal, made from materials that mattered to them, but all served the same purpose, visible reminder that command had cost. It became a tradition in Morven's battalion, not required, not expected, but available for warriors who wanted to mark themselves as people who remembered. The council noticed. Karsa summoned Morven again. You're creating a culture, the speaker said. Warriors wearing visible marks of loss, commanders who prioritize minimizing casualties, tactical approaches that value thought over aggression. It's spreading beyond your battalion. Is that a problem? That depends. Some see it as evolution, better leadership, smarter warfare. Others see it as weakness, sentimentality that will cost us when we face enemies who don't share your values. What do you see? I see results. Your battalion has the lowest casualty rate of any large formation. You accomplish missions consistently. Your warriors are loyal, well-trained, and effective. That's what matters. Then why summon me? Because the traditionalists are getting louder. They're saying your methods are making warriors soft, that you're teaching hesitation instead of aggression, that when real war comes, your battalion will break because you've trained them to think instead of fight. They're wrong. Prove it. The council is organizing war games, large scale, multiple battalions against each other, traditionalist commanders versus progressive ones. Your battalion against 3 others using conventional tactics. We'll see who performs better. Morven smiled slightly. When 3 months, plenty of time to prepare. We'll be ready. The war games took place in the summer in a massive training ground that simulated varied terrain, 8 battalions total. Morven's was one. The others were led by commanders who believed in traditional orcish warfare, aggressive assault, overwhelming force glory through combat. The scenario was complex capture and hold 3 objectives while protecting your supply lines. 1st Battalion to hold all 3 for 1 hour 1. Morven's battalion deployed using her methods, small mobile units, excellent communication, defensive positioning with aggressive counterattack capability. The traditionalist battalions deployed using theirs massive frontal assault, overwhelming force at key points, individual warrior courage. For the first 2 hours, it looked like the traditionalists were winning. They captured 2 objectives quickly through sheer aggression. Then Morven's counteroffensive began. While the traditionalists were celebrating their captures, Morven's units had been systematically destroying supply lines, cutting communications, isolating the enemy forces from each other. When her warriors attacked, they didn't try to match the traditionalists' strength. They exploited weaknesses, hit supply columns, disrupted command structures, forced the enemy to fight on multiple fronts simultaneously. Within 3 hours, 2 of the traditionalist battalions had effectively collapsed. Their warriors were scattered, their supplies cut, their command confused. Morven's battalion captured all 3 objectives and held them easily against disorganized resistance. The final score was embarrassing. Morven's battalion, minimal casualties, all objectives secured. The 3 traditionalist battalions, heavy casualties, complete tactical failure. After the games, the traditionalist commanders gathered to complain. She didn't fight honorably, one said. She used tricks instead of strength. I used tactics instead of stupidity, Morven corrected. There's a difference. Real warriors fight directly, face to face. Real warriors win. How they win matters less than whether they come home alive. Karsa, who'd been watching the entire exercise, stood. This debate is pointless. Captain Steelhand's methods work. Her battalion is the most effective formation we have. Instead of complaining about her approach, perhaps you should learn from it. She makes warriors soft. She makes warriors smart. There's a difference, and smart warriors are more valuable than aggressive ones. The games prove that. The speaker looked at Morven. You've made your point. Your methods are superior. But now comes the hard part, teaching them to others. Can you train other commanders to think the way you do? If they're willing to learn, make them willing. That's an order. 15 years after arriving at Blackrock, Morven Steelhand had become something she'd never intended to teach her. She ran command schools now, trained new captains, taught the principles she'd learned through pain and practice. Her core message never changed: command is responsibility. Remember the Keaton. Think before fighting. Value people over glory. Some students embraced it immediately. Others resisted. A few never learned. But slowly, gradually, the culture shifted. More commanders started considering civilian casualties, started thinking tactically instead of just aggressively, started bringing warriors home alive. The traditionalists never fully accepted her methods, but even they couldn't argue with results. Morven's students commanded battalions throughout the territories. Everywhere they served, casualty rates dropped. Mission success rates increased. Warrior morale improved. And more commanders started wearing visible reminders of cost. Shackles, bands, marks. Each different, each personal, each serving the same purpose: never forget. One evening, Elder Brenna, now ancient and near the end, called Morven to her quarters. I'm dying, Brenna said without preamble. Probably have weeks, maybe days. Wanted to talk while I still could. What do you want to talk about? Legacy. What you've built. What it means. Morven sat. I've just tried to be a good commander. You've done more than that. You've changed how orcs think about warfare, about leadership, about what it means to be strong. Brenna touched Morven's shackle gently. This thing, this visible reminder, it's become a symbol throughout the territories. Warriors see it and know you're someone who understands cost, who takes command seriously. That was never the intent. The best symbols rarely are. But here's what I want you to understand. You've created something that will outlast you. A generation of commanders who think differently, who value life, who understand that true strength is protecting people, not just killing enemies. Will it last after I'm gone? Some of it will, some won't. That's the nature of change. But you've moved the culture, shifted the baseline. Even if the traditionalists regain power, they won't fully erase what you've built. The memory will remain. The example will remain. The students you trained will train others. That's legacy. I just wanted to be the kind of commander I needed when I was a young warrior. And in doing so, you became the kind of commander every young warrior needs. That's what makes you exceptional. Brenna died 3 days later. Morven stood at her funeral alongside commanders from throughout the territories. Many wore visible marks of remembrance. Many had been Morven's students or students of her students. Looking at them, Morven realized Brenna had been right. She'd built something that would outlast her. Not perfect, not universal, but real. 20 years after arriving at Blackrock, Morven Steelhand retired from active command. She was 48, still capable, still sharp, but tired in ways that sleep didn't fix. The council offered her position: instructor, advisor, administrator. She refused all of them. I've spent 20 years teaching, she said. Now I want to rest. They let her go. She'd earned it. She built a small cabin in the mountains, not isolated, close enough to Blackrock that students could visit, but private, quiet, hers. Warriors came regularly, asking questions, seeking advice, showing her the marks they'd forged to remember their costs. Morven welcomed them all, shared what she knew, listened more than she spoke. The shackle on her wrist was more worn now. 20 years of constant wear had smoothed some of the rougher edges. But it was still there, still part of her. On quiet evenings, she'd sit on her porch and run her thumb over the iron. Still felt the weight. Still remembered the 6 warriors whose weapons had made it. Still felt it was worth it. One day Vorgath visited. He was old too, now gray-haired, slower, but still sharp. The council wants to establish a formal school, he said. Teaching your methods. They want to name it after you. No, why not? Because it's not about me. It's about the principles. Name it the Responsibility Academy or the Thoughtful Command School or something that captures the actual point. Not my name. You're frustratingly modest. I'm appropriately humble. There's a difference. They sat in silence for a while. Then Vorgath said, "Thank you for teaching me, for showing me there was a better way, for being patient when I was stubborn. You weren't stubborn. You were scared. Change is terrifying, especially when it means admitting you were wrong about fundamental things. Was I wrong? About some things, yes. About others, no. You were right that warriors need to be strong. You just learned that strength comes in different forms, that thinking is as valuable as fighting, that protecting is more important than conquering. I've trained my own students now, passed on what you taught me. They'll train others. The chain continues. That's legacy, not monuments or schools named after you, just knowledge passing from person to person. That's what lasts. More warriors visited over the years, each with their own stories, their own students, their own marks of remembrance. Morven watched the tradition spread and felt something she hadn't felt in decades: satisfaction. Not happiness that was too simple, but satisfaction. The sense that she'd done something worthwhile, that her pain had purpose, that the 6 warriors who died hadn't died for nothing. Morven Steelhand died at 73 in her cabin with Vorgath and Sarah beside her. Her last words were, "Remember the key." They buried her in the mountains overlooking Blackrock. The funeral drew commanders from every territory, hundreds of warriors, many wearing their own marks of remembrance. Vorgath spoke at the service. "She taught us that command is responsibility, that warriors are people, not assets, that thinking before fighting is strength, not weakness, that remembering cost is honoring sacrifice, not dwelling on failure." He held up his own marked arm, a different design than Morven's, but serving the same purpose. "We wear these to remember what she taught us. Every mark is a commitment to lead thoughtfully, to value life, to carry the weight instead of pretending it doesn't exist." He looked at the assembled warriors. Her body is gone, but her legacy lives in every commander who remembers, in every warrior who comes home because their leader thought before attacking, in every civilian who survives because warriors chose protection over glory. That's immortality, not in monuments or names, in principles passed forward, in lives saved, in culture changed. Remember her, remember remember that command is sacred trust. They buried her with the shackle still on her wrist. Morven and the iron had become one thing, inseparable, eternal. Years later, the Thoughtful Command Academy taught Morven's methods to every new officer. Her story became legend, but the legend stripped away the pain, the complexity, the difficult choices. They remembered her as a hero. They forgot she'd also been human, imperfect, struggling, doing her best in situations that had no good answers. But the warriors who'd known her, who'd served with her, learned from her, forged their own marks because of her. They remembered the truth. She'd been a commander who remembered the cost, who wore that cost openly, who taught others to do the same. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.